Welcome to our first tour in the Armadillo State. After several years of planning, I finally made it to the Fort Worth Zoo, along with apparently the rest of the world. Kidding aside, I've been looking forward to showing off this zoo for a long time. While every zoo is constantly changing and evolving, few have had a bigger rejuvenation in the past decade than Fort Worth. In actuality, you could say the zoo's renaissance started back in 2010 with the Museum of Living Art, a fantastic complex for mostly reptiles. After a relatively quiet 7 years, Fort Worth kicked off the Wilder Vision Master Plan, which saw 3 outstanding exhibits added between 2018 and 2023. As tempting as it is to introduce the zoo with their latest and greatest attraction, you may have already seen this exhibit featured on another ZooTube channel earlier this year. So instead, I'm opting to start with an area that predates everything I just mentioned. Texas Wild opened in 2001, and despite its age compared to most of the zoo, I would argue it is still, in some aspects, the zoo's best attraction. This very extensive complex will take us through the state's backwoods and swamps, to the Gulf Coast, across the plains, and even through the middle of a town. All in all, we'll see that few exhibits have more to offer than this one. After exiting out of Raptor Canyon and passing by penguins and animals of Australia, the Texas Archway comes into view. As you pass under it, the theming takes effect right away, welcoming you to Hill Country, a short experience highlighted by the comedic Boot Hill Graveyard. Continuing on, a few more steps bring you out of the country and into Texas Town, an impressive recreation of an old western town, complete with shops, a restaurant, and even a shooting range. But in my opinion, the attraction that shouldn't be missed is the Texas Hall of Wonders, a museum comprised of several small rooms that lead to an indoor theater. While I do recommend that you actually stay to watch the show, if you're like me, you're probably itching to get to the actual animals. The first of which we'll find in the High Plains and Prairies, as we enter into the dilapidated Twister House, home to 3 simple glass-fronted habitats. On the left, I saw a Baltimore Oriole, while on the far right, you can allegedly find a swift fox. However, most of the action in here was in the middle and largest habitat, a mixed species display with black-tailed prairie dogs living alongside the greater Roadrunner, a mostly terrestrial species that can touch speeds of over 20 miles per hour. However, contrary to their cartoon portrayal, this speed is not usually utilized to outrun coyotes, but rather to catch their own prey, which includes quick-moving insects and lizards, although roadrunners have little qualms about squaring up with more deadly prey items, including rattlesnakes. The habitat's third species is the Burrowing Owl, a contender for the animal kingdom's most adorable predator. These tiny owls stand just 9 inches high and weigh only 4 to 7 ounces. Burrowing owls were given the nickname howdy birds by cowboys due to their species' habit of poking their heads out of their burrows when disturbed. As a result of their largely underground lifestyle, burrowing owls have developed a higher tolerance to carbon dioxide compared to most other birds. Outside, around the side of the Twister House, kicking off the trail proper is a larger, mixed-species exhibit that, again, features 3 species. Up front was a wild turkey, whose looks can be deceiving. These notoriously plump birds can actually run almost as fast as the Roadrunner, and are even more agile in the air. And for my new favorite turkey fact, the red flesh that protrudes from a turkey's beak is called a snood. Hanging out a little farther back were the sandhill cranes and the curious white-tailed deer. Sandhill cranes are the most widespread crane in the world. They can be seen all over the US, depending on the time of year, spending the winter in southern states like Texas before heading north for the summer. However, these migratory birds are not restricted to US soil and may also be found in Mexico, Cuba, or even Siberia. While the deer's range is limited somewhat compared to the cranes by their inability to fly, they are still the most widespread ungulate in the Americas, especially in Texas, where you can find over 5 million as of 2024, which is over twice as many as any other state. Because they are so abundant, their vast grazing can have a significant impact on the ecosystems they inhabit. Speaking of ecosystems, we're leaving the plains and prairies behind and pushing deeper into the Texas country to explore the Pineywoods and Swamps, which can be accessed via the swinging swamp bridge. The habitats of the swamp are seen from one extensive viewing shelter. Beginning on the right is a woodland home where I unfortunately didn't see their red wolves. But what made up for it is the comedic spectacle I witnessed in the next habitat. Dan, the American alligator, was giving me the cold shoulder, and his roommate, Bowser, the alligator snapping turtle, decided to try to help me out. Bowser sauntered over to Dan, and after hanging around by the alligator's tail for a few minutes, quickly swam forward and latched onto the base of its tail in what I think was an attempt to mate. Alas, Dan was still completely unbothered, but this still goes down as possibly the most unexpected thing I've ever witnessed at a zoo. What makes this moment even more special is usually when you see an alligator snapping turtle at a zoo, you're more likely to see something like this. But as you'll see again in my next video, I've had surprisingly good luck with these notoriously motionless turtles lately. At 32 years old, Bowser is still relatively young, since captive alligator snapping turtles can live up to 70 years and may be able to reach or even exceed 100 years in ideal conditions. These magnificent beasts can grow to weigh 200 pounds and have an estimated bite force of 1,000 psi. Their pool seamlessly flows into the neighboring exhibit, where it's less surprising to see high levels of activity from North American river otters. The presence of otters is considered a good indicator of a healthy ecosystem, which could be good news for Texas's natural areas, since otters have reportedly been returning to waterways throughout the state in the past decade. Continuing down the line, we're entering bear country. While I only saw one black bear on my visit, as of 2020 the zoo is home to male Boudreaux and female TJ. Their habitat includes a smell log that children can climb into to potentially get a special up-close encounter with the bears, which would be far more informative for the bear due to their incredible sense of smell, which is 7 times greater than a bloodhound's, allowing them to smell out a food source over a mile away. Before leaving the Pineywoods and Swamps, be sure to say hi to the elegant trumpeter swans, the world's largest waterfowl. With 4 sections down, there's still plenty left to see as we reach the Texas Gulf Coast. As guests wait in line for the touch tank, they can observe look-down fish, Florida pompanos, the peculiar upside-down jellyfish, a yellowhead jawfish, and a few others. Through the exit doors is the Gulf Coast Aviary, an iconic image of the Fort Worth Zoo. On the dock, you'll usually encounter American white and brown pelicans, while the aviary's central wooden ship is usually covered in roseate spoonbills. Spoonbills are named for the flattened, circular tips of their bills, but they aren't actually born with them. Instead, newborn spoonbills hatch with short, straight bills that begin to flatten after just 9 days and can be fully developed within 40 days after birth. Spoonbills forage by sweeping these unique bills side to side through the water until prey is detected by the bill's sensitive nerve endings. Of the 6 spoonbill species, the roseate spoonbill is the only one native to the Americas. Like flamingos, it is believed these birds get their vibrant pink coloration from their diet by intaking the pigment carotenoid via the crustaceans that they feed on. Dotting the shoreline are more wading birds like the scarlet ibis, another bird that can thank carotene for their vibrant color, brightening the world with their red plumage for at least the last 60 million years. Stilts, like these blackneck stilts, have the second longest leg-to-body ratio among birds, just behind flamingos. These shorebirds can be quite the showbirds, putting on mock injury displays to lure predators away from their nests. Out the exit doors is a final view of the aviary from the outside as we press on into brush country. Straight ahead perches America's symbol, the majestic bald eagle. While they prefer to dine on fish, bald eagles can take down larger targets including geese and foxes. To aid in their more usual pursuit of fish, they are able to swim a catch to shore without letting go if it is too large to hoist into the air. Flipping sides of the path, look for mountain lion brothers Leonard and Sheldon, who were rescued as cubs in California and came to Fort Worth back in 2014. While mountain lions can't roar like lions, tigers, or leopards, they do communicate with a variety of hisses, growls, and chirps. However, their best known vocalization is their haunting, blood-curdling screams, but they might not mean what you think. These screams are typically from a female trying to attract a mate. How romantic. Next to the mountain lions is a small viewing shelter with two smaller glass-fronted exhibits. One for a ringtail, who you'd be lucky to ever see awake during the day, and the other for a Nauri, a 19-year-old ocelot, who I caught just before she settled down for another nap. Ocelots are mostly known as a South American species, but a small population can be found in South Texas. Right outside, I caught just a glimpse of their bobcat before it disappeared, so the next active species was the coyote. These incredibly adaptable canines can hit top speeds of over 40 miles per hour, which is double the top speed of a roadrunner, so yes, coyotes could and do catch roadrunners. Their preferred targets are usually small mammals like rabbits and squirrels, but they will eat reptiles, birds, large insects, and even grass and fruit. In addition to their speed, coyotes can leap over 13 feet and are even clever enough to trick their prey. Coyotes themselves can fall prey to larger predators, including the mountain lions and eagles we just saw. Another predator that could take down a coyote in places where their ranges overlap is the jaguar. Fort Worth is home to 14-year-old female Sochi, who has raised 2 litters of cubs at the zoo back in 2013 and 2015. In total, 8 jaguars have been born here since Texas Wild opened in 2001. Jaguars are now considered extinct in Texas, but the species has been sighted again in the US a few times in recent years. Most notably, a male nicknamed El Jefe lived in the southwest United States from 2011 to 2015, being sighted mostly in Arizona, but also in New Mexico and yes, Texas during that span. Historically, jaguars did roam the Texas Hill Country, with numerous sightings as recently as the early 1900s. And there are now some conservation talks of plans to re-establish a small population of jaguars in America's Southwest. Opposite the coyotes and cats is a unique species that guests seem to be having a hard time identifying. So to help them out, this is not an armadillo, it's not a badger, and it definitely isn't an anteater. This is the white-nosed coati. Coatis are actually members of the raccoon family. However, unlike raccoons, they are more active during the day and spend nights resting in the trees. Like the jaguar, their range is mostly south of the US border, but they are still present in southern parts of Texas and are considered a threatened species in the state, which may help them re-establish a larger territory on US soil. Just past the coatis is a very small walk-through aviary, home to a handful of species, though I only spotted a wood thrush, a small reclusive bird with a machine gun-like alarm call. Finally, brush country ends with 3 simple glass-fronted exhibits for a turkey vulture, a red-tailed hawk, and the last one for both Montezuma quail and broad-billed hummingbirds. And this is where our journey through Texas will come to an end. Though Texas Wild does have a 7th section, but since July 2022, the Mountains and Deserts has been closed for renovations. I've seen other great exhibits dedicated to local wildlife, but it's hard to find one that gives a more complete look at that state's animals or immerses you in the ecosystems better than Texas Wild. Now that we've covered their best older attraction, when we return to Fort Worth, we'll shift our focus to covering the Wilder Vision Master Plan, with 3 tours to be released over the next 2 years, by which time Phase 4 should already be completed. For the next exhibit tour, we'll finally be returning to a zoo that I haven't covered in quite some time.